Yo, friends, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Aleph, Daf 11 of Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Friends, it's a very cool Daf. Honestly, I think we should just jump in. It's like an Agadita kind of Daf. Some interesting stuff. So let's just do it, and then we could talk about it afterwards. So we're starting on Daf Yud Amud Beis, 2, 4, 5 lines from the bottom, Lamaisa, right after the parentheses. Tanya, we learned in a Brisa. By the way, it's still dark in here. We lost another light bulb over here. I'm a little bit hesitant to buy more because these light bulbs have been dying at a pretty rapid pace, or of course, as we experience in Eretz Yisrael, exploding at at a pretty rapid pace. And so let's go weiter. Tanya, we learn in a Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer, B'tishrei nivra olam. Ooh, friends, you hear that? Jumping right into things over here. Says Rabbi Eliezer, the world was created in Tishrei. B'tishrei noldu avis. It's just getting better and better. That in the month of Tishrei, the avis were born. B'tishrei mesu avis. And the avis, we'll have to see who they are in a second. They also died in Tishrei. Pesach nolad Yitzchak, but on Pesach Yitzchak was born. So basically, essentially, Avram and Yaakov were born in Tishrei. Avram and Yaakov died in Tishrei. Yitzchak was born in Nisan on Pesach. Rosh Hashanah nifkida Sarah Rachel v'Chana. Oh, friends, this is great stuff right here. On Rosh Hashanah, Sarah, Rachel, and Chana were remembered by the Eibishter, because Sarah, Rachel, and Chana all had a difficult time conceiving, and the Eibishter remembered them on Rosh Hashanah, and they were then able to conceive. Rosh Hashanah Yotza Yosef mi Beis Asurin. And friends, on Rosh Hashanah, Yosef HaTzadik was taken out from the dungeon there, from the prison in Mitzrayim. Wow. Rosh Hashanah batla avodah me'avosenu b'Mitzrayim, and on Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden stopped being enslaved in Egypt. Wow. Meaning, obviously, they left Egypt. They exodus. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Dennis, you pointed out recently that exodus is not a word, but maybe it should be. Did you suggest that maybe it should be? Well, okay. What do you want me to tell you? Over here, it's a word. In Babylon Talmud, it's a word. Benisa nigalu b'tishrei asidin ligoel. Wait, so meaning the Yidden left Egypt in Mitzrayim, just backing up one. No, they left Mitzrayim in Nisan, but the work, the enslavement, already stopped from Tishrei. Now, Benisa nigalu b'tishrei asidin ligoel. The Yidden were, of course, redeemed, taken out of Egypt in Nisan, but says Rabbi Eliezer that in the future, the Geula Shlema b'meher b'meinu amen is going to be in Tishrei. Wow, friends, how excited are you? I mean, if you're driving in your car now, be careful. Don't take your eyes off the road. I know this is exciting stuff. I don't know what's exciting about it. There's something about it that's exciting. It feels like this is like special stuff. I don't know why. Rabbi Yoshua Omer says Rabbi Yoshua Benisa Nivra Olam. Rabbi Yoshua disagrees, and while Rabbi Eliezer says that the world was created in Tishrei, Rabbi Yoshua is on the Nisan train. So Benisa Nivra Olam, the world was created in Nisan. Benisa Noldu Avis, the Avraham and Yaakov were born. Oh, excuse me, for somebody so excited, I must also be tired. Benisan Noldu Avis, and in Nisan, Avraham and Yaakov were born. Benisan Mesu Avis, and in Nisan, of course, Avraham and Yaakov also died. But Pesach Nolad Yitzchak, Yitzchak was born on Pesach, which I guess is also in Nisan. In which case, according to Rabbi Yeshua's version, I guess Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were all born in Nisan. Rosh Hashanah Nifkida Sarah Rachel v'Chana, and just like Rabbi Eliezer says, so on Rosh Hashanah, Sarah, Rachel, and Chana were remembered. Rosh Hashanah, Yotza Yosef and Beis Asurin. Also, he says that on Rosh Hashanah, Yosef HaTzadik left the dungeon there in Rosh Hashanah, Batla Avodah Me'avosenu b'Mitzrayim. On Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden were no longer enslaved in Egypt. Benisan Nigalu, Benisan Asidin Nigael. And Rabbi Yoshua concludes with the statement that the Yidden were redeemed from Egypt in Nisan, and the Geula Shlema, what's it called? The Geula Asida? I don't know, what's like an excited way? There's like must be like a fun way that in the Yeshiva Shavat they refer to the to the Geula. I feel like Geula Shlema, is there a better one? Is there a better, more fun one? We always like to say the funnier, kind of more fun ones, right? Try to say it in the most fun way possible to keep you guys entertained. Otherwise, you're going to abandon me in droves. I got to keep you excited. Anyways, what is the Geula Shlema? I feel like that's the thing, right? So that's going to be in Nisan, according to Rabbi Yoshua. Wow. So B'Nisan Nigalu, B'Nisan Asida Ligoel. Okay, let's go weiter, friends. Tani Rabbi Eliezer, Omer says Rabbi Eliezer, B'Nanche B'Tishrei Niva Olam. How do we know? So says Rabbi Eliezer, look, how do I know that the world was created in Tishrei? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Vayomer Elokim, that the Eibishter said, Tad she'aretz deshe, that the land should be filled with grass, Esav Mazria Zera, with different grasses, Eitz Pri, and trees that are full with ripe fruits. Eizu Chodesh she'aretz Milei Deshayim. What is the month that the land is filled with grass? Ve'ilon Moli Peris, and the trees are filled with fruits. Kilu, they're not at the beginning of the growth period; they're at the end. So Aviomer is a Tishrei. That's Tishrei, right? Everything is very abundant in Tishrei because it's at the end of the season. And at that point, it's also the beginning of the rainy season, right? Tishrei, we also pray for rain, so that we'll get a whole bunch of rain, so that we'll also have an abundant year next year. V'yardu geshamim, and it then rained, v'tzimchu, and everything grew. Then shenemar v'edyaylim min haaretz, and a mist rose up from the ground. So says Rabbi Eliezer, look, when the world was created, it was in Tishrei, when everything was filled with fruits, and then they were entering into the rainy season, and it says that then it rained. So says Rabbi Eliezer, look, as far as I can tell, this was happening around Tishrei time. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, where it says Rabbi Yoshua, Menayin she'b'Nisan nivra olam, how do I know that the world was created in Nisan? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Vatotzei haaretz deshe, that the land brought forth grass, Esav Mazria Zera, and different grasses, Ve'etz Ose Pri, and trees that are beginning to make fruits, that the fruits are now emerging from the trees. Eizu Chodesh haaretz motzia deshayim. What is the month in which the land brings out grasses? Ve'ilan motzi peris, and fruits are bringing out, and trees are bringing out their fruits. Havim is Nisan. That's Nisan, right? The beginning, right? And Nisan is when the trees are now bringing out their fruits. Right? It's not like in Tishrei where it's at the end of the season and everything's already been filled up with fruits. This is Nisan where things are emerging now. So therefore says Rabbi Yeshua that this is the world was created during Nisan time. And at that point, Nisan time is when the animals are reproducing, as we learned a few pages ago. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Love shukari matzon v'gomer." Friends, you remember that pasuk that all the sheep are getting pregnant around that time, and we said that it was Adar/Nisan time. So therefore, said and obviously the world at that point was in need of being populated with people, animals, everything. So therefore, it makes sense that it was around Nisan time when the trees were bringing forth fruit and the animals were populating, reproducing. And says Rabbi Yeshua, the world was created Nisan time. V'idoch nami oksiv eitz ose pri. What does Rabbi Eliezer, who says that all the trees were filled up with trees, i.e. it was at the end of the season, it was Tishrei. What does he do with the fact that we have a pasuk that says, there's two pasukim, right? One pasuk says eitz pri ose pri, the other pasuk says ve'etz ose pri. So eitz pri ose pri meant the eitz pri, that the trees were filled with fruits, and that was Rabbi Eliezer's pasuk. But what does he do with Rabbi Yeshua's pasuk, which is eitz ose pri, a tree that was producing, that was bringing forth its fruits. I use towards the beginning of the season, which is Nisan time. Sorry, 1 second. My mom made a comment. I called my mom before. She made a comment that my hair didn't look good or something, but I can't tell. Anyways, I told her to listen to the podcast instead of watch the video if my hair doesn't look good anyways. So, so what does Rabbi Eliezer do with the fact that it says a tree that brings forth fruits? Doesn't that sound like it's right towards the beginning of the season, that it's Nisan time? Hahu livrach lidoris hudachsev. Oh, that was just giving a blessing for future generations, that in future generations trees will be bringing forth fruit, but it's not an nafkamina for when the world was created. We have a different pasuk for that, which is eitz pri ose pri, so a tree that is filled with fruits, and that is Tishrei time. Okay, fine. Okay, so it's not, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's not Nisan, it's Tishrei. V'idach nami, according to Rabbi Yeshua, aksiv eitz pri. What does Rabbi Yeshua do with the fact that it says eitz pri? Rabbi Yeshua, who says Nisan time, what does he do with Rabbi Eliezer's pasuk of eitz pri, that it's a tree that seems to be filled with fruit, so it would be Tishrei time. Hahu could Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So Rabbi Yeshua learns it like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, called Maise Bereshis. Friends, you ready for this? I guess that answers the question. Lemaise, friends. This is big stuff. Lemaise, Mistama, this answers the kasha of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because it says, Kol Maise Bereshis, everything created in Genesis, Bikomaso Nivro. They were created in their fully grown. So therefore, what it means by eitz pri, meaning this tree wasn't just planted. The Eibishter didn't create the world and plant trees. The Eibishter created the world with full-size trees that were already producing fruit. That's the point. And to get back to the chicken and the egg, Mistamba, the Eibishter then created chickens. Not eggs. The chickens created the eggs. Okay? So it sounds like the chicken came first. Okay? Let's go weiter. The Daita Nivro, and they were also created with their consent. The Eibishter asked them, I don't know, let me just take, figs for an example. Figs, you want to be created? They said, yes, sir. So they were created with their consent. The Tzivyona Nivro, they were created based on their own specifications. I guess a fig said, I want to have this flavor, I want to have this shape. And the same thing with, watermelons, everything, iPhones? Maybe. No, maybe not iPhones. Maybe that came later. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, so that the Eibishter finished creating the heavens and the earth and everything created in them. Don't read them tzivam, all their, legions. Rather their will, right? Their desires, their own specifications that they desired to be created in. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, says Rabbi Eliezer, how do I know that the Ovis, at least Avraham and Yaakov, were born in Tishrei? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ve'ikalu el HaMelech Shlomo. So they gathered to the king Shlomo, Kol Ish Yisrael, all the Yidden, B'yerach ha'esonim, in the month of strength, B'chag an Sukkos. So Sukkos obviously is Tishrei, and we're calling it the Yerech ha'esonim, the month of strength. Yerach shenoldu bo esonei olam, the month that the strength of the world were created in. My mashma, fact the Gemara, how do you understand, how do you get that, my mashma dai eson lishna ditkifeu, how do we know that unless you say my mashma, maybe you can read it like that, Taka, actually. My mashma, let's Taka read it like that. My mashma, how do we learn from this pasuk of Yerach HaEsonim, the month of strength, that this is necessarily a reference to the that the Avos were born in Tishrei? So the Eson Lishna, no, it's probably the other way to read it. So my mashma the Lishna, the Hai Eson Lishna Kifehu. How do we know that when it says Eson, it means strength? Kidich. So now it's basically a few psukim that are going to prove that yes, Eson is strength, but also that the Avos were taka born at that time. Kidich is the pasuk says Eson Moshavecha, that your community, your dwelling, your settlement is strong. V'omer, and it says Shimuharim Ezriv Hashem, and it says the pasuk, where is this? In Micha? Maybe. Where's this pasuk? Yeah, Micha. Shimuharim Ezriv Hashem. Mountains, listen to the fight or quarrel of God. V'yisanimos de'aretz, and the strength, i.e., also a reference to those heart. It was like doubling what it's saying. So also the mountains, mos de'aretz, which established the land. So we see from Eson Moshavecha that Eson means strength, and it says Shimuharim Esriv Hashem v'Esonim de'aretz. So we see Esonim is a reference to mountains. The Omer in the pasuk says, Kol dodi hinei zeba, the voice of my beloved is coming, Medalag alaharim mekapetz alagvos, jumping from mountain to mountain, from hilltop to hilltop. Alaharim bizchus avis. I'm sorry, where am I? Medalag alaharim bizchus avis. He's skipping on the mountains in the merit of the fathers, of the forefathers. Mekapetz alagvos bizchus imos, and skipping from, jumping from one hilltop to another hilltop in the merit of the mothers. The foremothers, is that a thing? The forefathers and the foremothers? Maybe it's the forefathers, F-O-R-E, and the four, F-O-U-R, mothers. Maybe there's that. Anyways, friends, what do we see from there? We see that the harim is a reference to the avis, and we also said that harim is Esonim, right? Esonim they are. So mountains are the fathers. Mountains are also the Esonim. And we said that the Esonim is so we said that the mountains are a reference to the forefathers. Mountains are also Esonim, and therefore so Eson is basically the forefathers, and also it says Yerecha Esonim in reference to Tishrei. So Memele in Tishrei, which is Yerecha Esonim, is also the month of the Esonim, which also means mountains, which is also a reference to the forefathers. So the forefathers were born, and we're going to see later on in just a little bit, died as well in Tishrei. That's what Rabbi Eliezer wants to argue. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, where it says Rabbi Yeshua, Minayin shebenisan noldu avis. How do we know that the forefathers were born in Nisan? Rabbi Yeshua disagrees and says that they were born in Nisan. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, that it was in 480 years. It says from when the Yidden left Egypt, Bashana Arvias, in the 4th month, Bachodesh Ziv, in the 4th year, Bachodesh Ziv, in the month of Ziv, which we said is Iyar, B'yerech Shenoldubo Ziv Sane Olam, in the month that the radiance of the world radiances of the world were created, i.e. the forefathers. Now, of course, if you might be asking yourselves, wait, aren't we trying to prove Nisan, not Iyar? So, you're asking a good question. So you kind of have to squeeze it a little, massage it a little bit. That Kila, what it's saying is that, yes, in Iyar, they had already been born from Nisan. Very nice. Or maybe sometimes Kufas Tishrei can to Kufas Nisan can extend into Iyar or something like that. Some way we have to make Iyar be Nisan. But okay, if you okay with making Iyar be Nisan, so then you could learn that Chodesh Ziv is the Chodesh that the Zivsani Olam were born, and that means that the Avos were born in Nisan. V'oksiv b'yerecha Esonim. So now what does Rabbi Yeshua do with Rabbi Eliezer's pasuk of b'yerecha Esonim in the month of the Esonim, which we said was the Avos, referencing Tishrei? So Hasam de Tokiv b'mitzvahs. No, Yerecha Esonim, what's so strong about Tishrei is that there's millions of mitzvahs in Tishrei, right? Rosh Hashanah, Tkiyah Shofar, Yom HaKippurim, Sukkah, Lulav, Aravis, it doesn't end. So that is why it's called the Yerecha Esonim, because it's so strong with its spiritual value. V'idach, Nami Oksiv, B'chodesh Ziv. And what does Rabbi Eliezer do with the pasuk that talks about the month of Ziv, which we learned out that the forefathers were born in Nisan? So Ahud Izbe Ziva Leilne. What it means is that in Nisan time there is splendor and radiance to the trees. Dam Rav Yehuda, that says Rav Yehuda in Masechta Brachos, and obviously also in Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Hamadinofak biyome Nisan, a fellow goes out during the Nisan time, v'chazi ilne dimalavleve, and he finds trees that are budding. Omer, he says, Baruch shelo chisem e'olam uklum, Blessed is the Eibishter who didn't leave out anything from the world. Uvarabo Brias Tovis, and he created in the world good creations, Vilanos Tovos, and good trees, the snows, Boin Bnei Adam, for people to get benefit from. So that so it's the month in which there is a lot of splendor for the trees in Nisan time. Wow. Says the Gemara, my Mando Omar Benisan Noldu, Benisan Mesu, Mando Omar Betishrei Noldu, Betishrei Mesu. Woof. Friends, famous stuff over here. The Mando Omar who says that the Avos were born in Tishrei, they also died in Tishrei. The Mando Omar who says that they were born in Nisan, they also died in Nisan. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Yomer Aleim, that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Yidden, Ben Mea ve'esrim shana anochi hayom, I am 120 years old on this day. Shein tam v'lomer hayom, he didn't have to say today, he could just say I'm 120 years old. What does it mean I'm 120 years old today? Umatam v'lomer hayom, why does it say today? Hayom maluyom hayushnosai, that today my days and my years are complete. Lilamedcha, friends, you ready to teach you? Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev umimale shnoseim shel tzadikim, that the Eibishter sits and he makes complete the years of the righteous, miyom liyom, to the day, mechodesh lechodesh, to the month. Kilu, that right? If you've heard the famous thing that tzadikim are born and die on their birthday, so what we're saying is that Moshe Rabbeinu had 120 full, complete years. And that's what we're saying also here with the Avos, that if they were born in Tishrei, Memela, they died in Tishrei. If they were born in Nisan, they also died in Nisan. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Es mispar yomecha amalei, I will fill the number of your days. B'Pesach nolad Yitzchak minolan. How do we know that Yitzchak Avinu was born on the festival of Passover? Ki dichsiv, as the Pasuk says, Lamoid ashuv elecha, that I will come back to you at the very next Moed. Now, famously, Rashi points out in the Chumash that the Malachim, the angels, came to visit Avram on Pesach, and that is when he got the notice that he was going to have a baby. This Gemara does not assume like that. And there's a big Hagah at the top of Yud Aleph and Beis, which I didn't get to yet, though I would like to read it. It looks extremely interesting, discussing this very question. Discrepancy. But here the Gemara is not assuming that the Malachim came to visit Avraham Avinu on Pesach. Rather, we're trying to figure out when they came to visit. But either way, what the Gemara is learning, that when the Pasuk says, Lamoed ashuv elecha, I will come back to you, Lamoed, it means on the next possible Moed, right? Moadim, the festivals. So, meaning if it was Pesach, then that means that they would come back on Shavuos. If it was Shavuos, they would be coming back on Sukkot, etc. So, what festival did they visit Avraham Avinu? Maskoi, when was this? Ilema bePesach. If they came to visit Avraham Avinu on Pesach, V'ka'amele ba'atzeres, and they're saying that we're going to come back on the next possible festival, that would be Shavuos. B'cham shenyom mika yada. Is it possible for a woman to conceive and give birth after 50 days? Mistomenat. Okay, so then maybe it's Shavuos. Maybe the angels visited Avraham Avinu on Shavuos and said, we're going to come back on Sukkot and you're already going to have a baby, a yingel. So v'karmele b'tishrei, akati michamisha yarchei Mika Yalda, but still, is 5 months enough? I don't know. The mice, I will be the first to tell you, I am not an expert, but Sharna knows. Sharna definitely knows. Sharna, is it possible for a baby to be born in 5 months? Sounds like the Gemara says no. What do you say? Okay, so rather, friends, what must it be? They came to visit Avraham Avinu on Sukkot, and they're saying that we're going to come back in 6 months at Pesach. Akati b'shisa yarchi mika yalda. But still, is 6 months enough to have a baby? Tana Osa Shana Mu'beres Haisa. Well, the Gemara says, well, it was a leap year that year. So if it's a leap year, then it's actually 7 months between Sukkot and Pesach. Sof, Kimadli Mayome Tuma Batrilu. However, says the Gemara points out, but, right, the Pasuk says that Avraham Avinu got Chema V'cholav Uven Bakar, that he got for the angels, he got for them butter and milk and lamb, and it doesn't say anything about the bread that Sarah Imenu was making. That's because that day Sarah became a Nida. And therefore, if she was a Nida, so then Mela, she couldn't be sleeping with Avram to conceive a baby. So she would have had to wait until she was no longer a Nida, which means that kind of messes with the whole 7 month thing. Now it's already less than 7 months. So Amar Marzutra, says Marzutra, Afilu Mandamu Yoledis Letisha, Ena Yoledis Lemukutayin. Even according to the Manda Amar, who says that a full-term pregnancy must be 9 full months and no less than that. Yoledis l'shiva yoledis l'mekutayin, but if a woman gives birth after 7 months, it doesn't have to be 7 full months, it can be even less than that. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, vayilu tkufas hayomim. It says in the context of Chana that it was after the tkufos hayamim. Tkufos is plural and yamim is plural. A tkufa is a season. There are 4 seasons. Each season is 3 months. So tkufos, 2 seasons, is 6 months. And yamim is multiple days, so 2 days. So in 6 months and 2 days, right? Miut kufos shtayim. The minimum of seasons is 2, and the minimum miut yomim shtayim. The minimum of days is 2. So therefore, Chana gave birth after 6 months and 2 days. So here also we see that it doesn't have to be a full 7 months, and therefore you can say that the Malachim came to Avraham Avinu on Sukkot. They told him that on Pesach he was going to have a yingel, he was going to have a baby, and it was a leap year, so it was 7 months. What about the fact that Sarah was a Nida at the time? Okay, fine, so a little bit less than 7 months, that's still possible, and that's how you know that Yitzchak Avinu was born on Pesach. Wow, gewaldig. Rosh Hashanah nifkida Sarah Rachel v'Chana minolan. How do we know that Sarah, Rachel, and Chana were all remembered by the Eibishter on Rosh Hashanah? Amr Belazar says, Belazar asa pekida asa zechira schira. So we make Gzeira Shavos, using the word pekida and using the word zechira. It says by Rachel, Vayizkar Elokim is Rachel, that the Eibishter remembered Rachel. And it says by Chana that the Eibishter remembered her. So it says Zocher, Zechira, both by Rachel and by Chana. And it also says Zechira, remembering by Rosh Hashanah. Tichziv, as the pasuk says, Shabboson Zichron Trua. It says by Rosh Hashanah, Zichron Trua, remembering the blowing of the ram's horn. So we see that it says Zikaron, remembering by Rachel, by Chana, by Rosh Hashanah. So we see that Rachel and Chana were remembered on Rosh Hashanah. And then Pekida, we make Gzeir Shava. It says Pakad by both Chana and by Sarah. Ksiv b'Chana, it says by Chana ki Pakad Hashem es Chana, that the Eibishter remembered Chana. Uchsiv b'Sarah, Vashem Pakad es Sarah. It also says by Sarah that the Eibishter remembered Sarah. So because it says Pakad by Chana and by Sarah, and we know that by Chana it says Zechira, which it also says by Rosh Hashanah, so Memele Hashem remembered Sarah on the same day that he remembered Chana, and therefore, which is Rosh Hashanah, which is also the same day that the Eibishter remembered Rachel. So we see that the Eibishter remembered Rachel, Chana, and Sarah all on Rosh Hashanah. B'Rosh Hashanah, Yotze Yosef Beis Asurin Minolan Uwa. How do we know that Yosef HaTzadik came out of prison on Rosh Hashanah? Minolan, Dichsev, as the pasuk says, Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel l'chagenu. Blow on the month, a ram's horn. Bakeslim Chagenu, that the festival is when the moon is hidden. Kichok Yisrael Hu v'Gomer, because it is a statue for Israel, right? Of course, that's a reference to Rosh Hashanah, as we've seen before. Eidus b'Osef Samo b'Tzeso v'Gomer, and then it says right after that in the Pasuk in Tilim, it says that there was testimony by Yosef, right? He gave testimony to Yosef when he when he went out on Egypt. So we see that there is a connection between Yosef Hatzadik leaving prison and Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah Botla Avodim Avosenu b'Mitzrayim, and Rosh Hashanah, the enslavement in Egypt stopped from our fathers. It says over here by Yitzias Mitzrayim, V'otzesi eschem mitachas sivlos Mitzrayim. I will take you out from the sivlos, from the burdens, from the work, hard work, backbreaking work of tribulations of Egypt. And it says in that same pasuk where it says Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesum chagenu, then it says Eidus b'osef samo. It says right after that Hasirosi misevel shichmo, I've removed them from these burdens. So we see that when they stopped doing the burdens, when they stopped being enslaved, so then that was on Rosh Hashanah Oichet, that was on Rosh Hashanah as well. Benisa nigalu kedeisa, the Yidden were redeemed is redeemed? Is that the right word? Geula, redemption. Yeah, they were redeemed in Nisan, obvious kedeisa, like obviously keilu. That's when Pesach, that's when the Yidden left Egypt. But Tishrei Asidin Nigael, in the future the Yidden will the Guda Shlema, if that's the most yeshivish way we could say it, for now it is. So the Gula Shlema is also going to be in Tishrei Asya Shofar, because we have a Gezer Shava of Shofar Ksiv Hacha. It says over here by Rosh Hashanah Tiku b'chodesh shofar, blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah Ksiv Hasam, and it says by the Geula Asida, the Geula Shlema, by Yom Hu you talk about shofar, that on that day it will be blasted on the shofar. So we see that the Geula Shlema is going to be in Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua Omer says, Rabbi Yeshua b'Nisan Negalu, that the Yidden were redeemed from Egypt in Nisan, b'Nisan Asidin Ligoel, and in the future the Yidden will be redeemed from in Nisan as well. Minalan, how do we know this? Omar Kra, that the pasuk says Leil Shimurim, that it is a night of guarding. Leil Meshumar Uva Misheshis Yimei Beishis, it is a night that is preserved from the 6 days of creation for this purpose, for redemption. Right? So Leil Shimurim, this was a protected night during Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it is also protected for future redemptions, i.e. the Geula Shlema. Ve'idach, whereas how does Rabbi Eliezer learn? What does he learn from that pasuk of Leil Shimurim, a night of preservation or a preserved night? Leil HaMeshumar Uva Min HaMazikin. He says, well, it's a night that you are guarded from nudnik demons. So okay. So it doesn't have to do with Geula per se, it's a night of protection from demons. Sounds like fun. And Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua are consistent with their reasons. Let's see. Meaning when they both, right? Rabbi Eliezer says that the world was created in Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua says that the world was created in Nisan. They are consistent with their opinions in the following Brisa. Detanya, as we learn in a Brisa, Bishnas Sheish Meos, Shana L'Chayu Noach, that the flood began in the 600th year of Noach. He was already, not a young man anymore. He was 600 years old. B'chodesh Hasheni, and it was in the second month of when he was 600 years old. In the second month, B'Shiva Asur Yom L'Chodesh, on the 17th day of the second month. And the question is, what was the second month? Was it Cheshvan, or right, which would mean that the world was created in Tishrei, and this was Cheshvan, or are we talking about Iyar? Rabbi Yeshua Omer also Ayom Yudzayin Be'Iyar Hoya. So Rabbi Yeshua says that was the 17th day of Iyar. Rabbi Yeshua says the world was created in Nisan, and we're saying that the second month is the month of Iyar. It was the 17th day of Iyar that the flood began. Yom Shemazal Kima Shokea B'Yom. So now I don't know. I wouldn't say I don't know anything, but I know it's probably more accurate to say I know very little. But just to put things in perspective, very little. It's just not absolutely nothing, but it's probably closer to absolutely nothing than anything else. So now we're saying, so there's this mazel constellation that's called Kima, Shokea Bayom, and it usually like sets during the day in Iyar. Umayonos Mismaitin, and at that point the Ma'ayanot, the springs, are generally pretty low. The water levels are generally pretty low around Iyar time. But because they kind of changed their ways, right, to be not straight but to be crooked, Shina Kadosh Baruch Hu Alei Ma'aseh Bereishis, the Eibishter also turned away and changed the ways of creation. Vehelo Mazel Kima Bayom, and whereas usually at that point in the year, Kima usually is going down during the day, he actually had it rise during the day. V'nato shnei kochavim mikima, and he took 2 stars from this constellation of Kima, Vehevi Mabul Olam, and used them to bring a flood. So usually Iyar would be a time that the waters are low, but because these people were very, very big nudniks, so the Eibishter, he changed things around. They were changing the way of the world around. You're not supposed to be a nudnik, and they were being nudniks. So the Eibishter says, well, at this time of the year in Iyar, the waters are supposed to be low. Kima is supposed to set in the day. He changed that around and had Kima rise during the day, and the waters rise up and flood the entire world. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, where it says Rabbi Eliezer also Ayom Yudzayin b'Mar Cheshvan. Rabbi Eliezer says that actually it was the 17th day of Mar Cheshvan, because the world was created in Tishrei. The second month is Cheshvan. It was the 17th day of Cheshvan. Yom Shemazol Kima Ola Bayom, a day that generally the constellation of Kima comes up during the day. Umayonos Miskabrim, and the waters are very powerful and strong. And now this next line doesn't really make sense. We're going to have to explain this in a minute. But Umitoch Shashinu Ma'aseh, and because they turned away in their actions from, whereas they were not supposed to be nudniks, they were nudniks. So Shina Kadosh Baruch Hu Alei Ma'aseh Bereishis, the Eibishter changed the way of creation. And we're going to have to understand how, because this seems to be actually exactly what creation dictates. But Vehelo Mazel Kima Bayom, and the constellation of Kima arose during the day. V'nato Shnei Kochavim, and the Eibishter took 2 stars from Kima, Vehevi Mabul Olam, and brought a flood to the world. So, right, now the thing is, according to Rabbi Yoshua, I understand what it means that he changed it around, because usually Kima is setting and he made Kima rise. According to Rabbi Eliezer, Kima was rising anyways, and it continued to rise. So we have to understand what it means that he made a change there. But okay, new friends. So we see that Rabbi Yeshua says that the flood waters in the days of Noach began in Iyar. Rabbi Eliezer says that the flood waters by Noach began in Cheshvan. Okay. B'shlam Rabbi Yoshua. So now I understand Rabbi Yoshua, who says that the flood began in Iyar. Hanu d'chsev Sheni. That's what it says. It was the second month. The second month, of course, is Iyar. Elu Rabbi Eliezer my Sheni. So what does it mean that it was the second month? Sheni Ledin. It's the second month since the judgment, right? We said on Daf Ches that the first of Tishrei is the Rosh Hashanah L'Shanim, and one of the explanations there was it means that that on Rosh Hashanah is when the entire world gets judged for the year. So it was in the second month since then, which is Mar Cheshvan. Bishlama Rabbi Yeshua anu dishina, and the Gemara says, okay, also I understand Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, because it says that the Eibishter made a change, right? Meaning usually Kima is setting during the day, and the water levels are low. The Eibishter turned it around, and now Kima was rising, and the water levels rose and flooded the world. So I understand that he made a change. Rabbi Eliezer Ma'ashina. According to Rabbi Eliezer, what did he change? Right? The Kima during Mar Cheshvan is rising, the waters are rising, and that's exactly what happened during the Mabul. So what changed? So Rav Chizda, it's like Rav Chizda, Rav Chizda, Beroschen Kilkelu, Beroschen Yidonu. They sinned with boiling things, and they got judged with boiling things. Beroschen Kilkelu, Ba'avera. They sinned in inappropriate sexual relationships, and the boiling is referring as a reference to the semen. and they're also judged in boiling hot water. So what the change was, according to Rabbi Eliezer, is that while normally the water wouldn't be boiling hot, in this case it was boiling hot. It says over here, it says in the context of the flood that the waters sort of settled and cooled off, and it also says by Achashverosh v'chamas hamelech shachacha, that the anger of the king kind of tempered. So we see that shachacha is a reference to tempering. So therefore, it says vayashocha amayim, the waters tempered, i.e., they were boiling hot, and then they cooled down. So we see that the waters during the Mabul, during the flood, were boiling hot, which is not normally how the waters are. Tanu Rabbanon Chachmei Yisrael monin l'Mabul, that the Rabbi Eliezer, that the elders, the Chachmei, the wise people of Israel, so they count sort of years, generally speaking, like Rabbi Eliezer, from Tishrei, right? So the beginning of the year is generally considered to be from Tishrei. That's when Rosh Hashanah is. That's the new year. But l'tkufa Rabbi Yoshua. But in terms of when was the world actually created, they agree with Rabbi Yoshua that it was created in Nisan. Chachmei Umas Ha'olam monin af l'mabul Rabbi Yoshua. Whereas the wise people of the nations of the world, they count even like whenever the years are from Nisan, which is actually kind of interesting. Actually, it's actually really interesting. Because growing up, I grew up in America, but so obviously we always knew what New Year's was. We probably had a day off from school because there was no transportation or something. So I think we had, or a half day, I don't know. I think we had something on New Year's. I don't really know. But anyways, but for us, like New Year was always like Rosh Hashanah. Like that's New Year. Even like, it was only until recently that I realized that that's only we consider like the New Year Rosh Hashanah. It always made sense to me. Rosh Hashanah is like, I don't know, September time. That's when the school year starts. It's after the summer. Like everything's getting started. It always kind of made sense to me that, like in everybody's mind, the year started like September time. That's like when the year gets started. Summer camp is over, right? The year concludes with summer camp. And then after summer camp, you start the new year. It's Rosh Hashanah. That's when everything gets started again. But I only realized maybe even the last 5 years, I don't know, that like outside of, I guess, Teaneck, the new year, or certain blocks in Teaneck, I guess, the new year is January 1st, right? That's when the new year starts, which isn't quite Nisan, but it isn't quite September either. So interesting you say, right? They're saying that the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam, they view the new year from being from Nisan time, not necessarily from Tishrei time, which is very, very interesting stuff. Very, 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 very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Also, maybe it could be a reference to like, in Eretz Yisrael, the winter starts in, around Tishrei time, whereas in other places in the world, like South Africa and Australia, I think also, like it's the opposite. It's hafuch. That like the, January time is taka, Nisan time is like, that's when it's getting cold. Like the seasons are opposite. So maybe like if we say that like the beginning of the year is from like when it starts to like, it's no longer, summer's over and now we're starting like the winter. So that's kind of flipped in other places of the world. So maybe it's a reference to that. Anyways, I'm just babbling, but I guess that's what you came here to hear me do anyways. So, all right, friends, that was Daf Yud Aleph. Woo! Lots of interesting stuff on Daf Yud Aleph, right? Where do I even start? I mean, you just read the first part, right? The machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, that when was the world created? Rabbi Eliezer says in Tishrei. Rabbi Yoshua says it was created in Nisan. They also disagree about when were the Avos born, when did they die? Famous Gemara that Tzaddikim, live or born and die on their birthday. We saw that Yitzchak was born on Pesach. Sarah, Rachel, and Chana were remembered on Rosh Hashanah. Yosef was freed from jail on Rosh Hashanah. The Yidden stopped being enslaved in Egypt on Rosh Hashanah. We saw that Rabbi Eliezer says, Benisin Nigalu, Betishrei Asidin Nigal. Rabbi Yeshua says, Benisin Nigalu, Benisin Asidin Nigal. Very, very interesting stuff, and how their opinions tie into the Mabul. Anyways, friends, super, super interesting stuff. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope, of course, you enjoy your day. Peace out.